The Pacifica series launched in 1990 and was driven by the California session scene, in which versatility and performance were key. 30 years later, Yamaha launched the Pacifica 612 V2X and V2 FMX, the latest additions to the Pacifica range. Pacifica 600 models are inspired by custom shop guitars and equipped with professional components from leading parts developers. They are the modern embodiment of the original Pacifica concept. We spoke with GraphTech, Wilkinson, and Seymour Duncan to talk about their components and the advantages they offer guitarists. Our first conversation is with Dave Dunwoody of GraphTech Guitar Labs. Hey Dave, how's it going?
Great, Dave. How's it going with you?
We're doing very well, thank you. Can you please tell us about yourself and your role at GraphTech?
Sure. We're located in Delta, BC, which is just right beside Vancouver, BC. And I'm the founder, owner of GraphTech. We've been around since 1983. My specific role here is in the research and design and the marketing, and plus get down into the manufacturing side once in a while too. Now we're the largest manufacturer of nuts and saddles in the world. We do over 1 million nuts and saddles a year.
Our Pacifica 600 models all feature GraphTech Tusk nuts and string trees. What are the advantages of those two components for players?
Well, the specific advantage for those two components is you're going to stay in tune a lot better, whether you're using a tremolo or doing string bends. The other advantage is just the actual tone of the product. When you drop a Tusk nut or string tree or saddle on a hard surface, you'll hear it's kind of like dropping a bar of aluminum compared to the lid off your Bic pen. It just sort of lies there dead. So it really it sounds good, which is most important for any guitar player, and it performs good. On the string trees themselves, it's all one-piece string trees, so it's got a real good connection to the headstock. And then, in the smaller details, if you look underneath the string tree, how the slot is formed, it comes down to a sort of a U or V-shaped groove. So there's only one point of the string actually touching on the string tree, which again eliminates friction. So it's all designed to sound good, plus keep yourself in tune.
Can you tell us exactly what Tusk is for players who might not be familiar with it?
Sure. It's made under high heat and pressure. We call it man-made ivory, and we're going after something that had a lot more harmonic content in a material. For people that are a little unfamiliar with harmonics, it's like having a 5-piece choir singing the A chord, and then having a 12-piece choir singing the A chord. It's the same chord, but it's a lot more rich with 12 people. There's lots more stuff happening. It's just a lot more ear candy. So the Tusk XL nut is our Tusk material, plus with PTFE, which is also known as Teflon. So that's the lubricating part of it, so the strings don't stick in the nut when you're doing tremolo bends or just big string bends.
The guitar that you've got in your hands is one of our Pacifica 611 models, which has a different pickup configuration than the new 612. It also has a fixed bridge with GraphTech string saver saddles. Can you talk about the advantages of those?
Sure. Glad you asked. String saver saddles are slightly a little bit different formulation than our Tusk XL nuts, but a lot of very similar too, where it has PTFE in the saddles, and the PTFE is actually what stops breaking string. It's the string saver saddles tonally, because everybody asks what they sound like. It's a very balanced sound. There's a bottom end, there's mids, and there's highs. A steel saddle kind of has a 2K spike in it, which kind of dominates the spectrum of tone.
I understand that you have a personal connection to the Pacifica series. Can you tell us about that?
20 years ago, we had the NAMM show, and we needed a guitar that could fit all our products on it. And I went to our local music store, and they had some Yamaha Pacificas there, and they're on sale. I go, well, that guitar, or nut, or string trees, or string saver saddles. And so we equipped it with everything, and took it to the show, and came back, and I started playing it, and it became for the last 15 years of basically gigging almost full time, became my main guitar. This is the first guitar ever to have the Ghost pickup system in it, which is our string saver saddles, and with the piezo pickups and our preamp in it. So yeah, it really took me back. Seeing the 611 and 612, I was pretty excited to see like my guitar. It's been created even a little better, I think, than my original.
Our next conversation is with Wilkinson. Trev, thanks for joining us. Can you please introduce yourself and talk about your position?
Yes, I am Trev Wilkinson, and I founded the company in 1984, and we've continued to this present day making guitar hardware and parts. And for the want of a better term, I'm a designer and an innovator, I hope. And we do everything we possibly can to help guitar players get the most out of their instruments. Anything that helps a guitar player stay in tune was like my mission statement, if you like. And that's what we've been doing ever since.
Can you please give us a short history of the company?
Yeah, sure. I invented a product for the guitar in 1982 when I was in Australia. I am English, as you can probably tell from the accent. But I traveled from Australia in 1984 to America to make and market what became known as the Wilkinson roller nut. And that led to me working with a lot of guitar players, seeing a need in the market for a new style vibrato bridge, which turned out to be called the VS100. And we continued to innovate with bass bridges, work closely with Yamaha from very, very early on, certainly from the late 80s, including some of your bass endorsees as well as your guitar endorsees. And Yamaha became a customer of Wilkinson, utilizing the VS100 piece on many of your artist guitars, and of course your high dollar guitars.
The Wilkinson VS56 bridge has appeared on almost every high-spec Pacifica over approximately the past decade. Can you please talk about the advantages of that bridge design?
Yeah, sure. It's kind of a cross. It's a culmination of two of the original Wilkinson designs. The first most important thing, I think, is the saddles themselves, which were a feature of the original VS100, which we introduced in the mid-80s. You guys have used that bridge on artist models and some of your high-end models when I worked with you guys at YGD in Hollywood all those years ago. So you do your intonation, you do your height, your radius adjustments, and then when you've tuned it up to pitch, you lock those saddles solidly down, and they transmit as much of the string energy as that string is making to the guitar, which is, essential for the start of the tone transfer of what we're hearing through the guitar. And then you incorporated one of my other innovations, which is what I call the 5+1 knife edge. So it looks like it's got 6 holes, but in fact it's only got 1 hole, and that's there to stop the bridge from moving sideways. And the other holes have been replaced by small slots, which allow the screws to go in and not bind in the corners of the holes, which was a problem with some of the bridges from 1954. It's down to your engineers and them looking at the different Wilkinson bridges they've used in the past and saying to themselves, wow, if we could incorporate that feature with that feature, we'd have a great bridge, and it would give us something which is unique to Yamaha. So you took those two ideas, put them together in a really unique piece for you guys, and it's still being used today, and I'm absolutely thrilled and very, very grateful that I was able to help and hope to continue to do so.
Our final guest is joining us from Seymour Duncan. Kevin, can you please introduce yourself and tell us about your role?
My name is Kevin Beller, and I've been at Seymour Duncan for quite a long time, since 1979. My current position is VP of Engineering. I've been really doing their product design ever since I started there, and a little bit of everything else too, but basically product design, managing the engineering department.
Our Pacifica 612 guitars come with the SSL1 single coils and a Custom 5 humbucker. What can you tell us about those pickups?
Sure. The SSL1 was one of those products that we were building by hand back when I first started. And it's one of my first projects to get it tooled up and get it so that we could mass produce it, with some reasonable amount of time and effort. So that product is based on a traditional design that originated in 1954. And one of Seymour's things has always been faithful reproduction of old designs. So that's kind of his specialty. So he spent a lot of time studying all those old designs, the old single coils and the old humbuckers. And the SSL1 was one of them, where we used, original, all the original style of magnets, the Alnico 5 rod magnets, and heavy form var magnet wire, which was a kind of a trademark of those times. That was the type of magnet wire that was in use back then. That and plain enamel for humbuckers. But the SSL1 uses the heavy form var, which I think is a really key part of the sound of those pickups. Is that heavy insulation? It really gives a lot of that clarity and brilliance and the liveliness of those pickups. The Custom 5 it has been a kind of an evolution of several other models, and it started out as one of our big artist models back in the early days. It was a pickup that we made for Eddie Van Halen in its earliest incarnation. Over the years, our user base, we've always had good relationships with some of our forum members and our user base. And they've always come up with all these suggestions like, well, what if you took an SH5 and you put, an Alnico 2 magnet in it? Or what if you put an Alnico 5 magnet in it? The Custom 5 went through, it started out just as the Custom. So it was a custom version of the Duncan Custom. And that was with an Alnico 2. And then somebody said, well, let's try it with an Alnico 5. And then it became the Custom. And so that got shortened down. Obviously, you're not going to use that name, but that was the name around the shop. And it got shortened to the Custom 5. So it's a relatively hot wind, but it's softened up a little bit by using an Alnico 5 and warmed up a bit. So the original SH5 or the Duncan Custom was a bright, really harmonic, rich pickup, maybe too bright for a lot of people's tastes, and that's why we evolved it into the different versions with the Alnico 2 and the Alnico 5. It retains some of that power that the original had, but it warms up a little bit more into more of almost a traditional rock and roll, tonality.
Our Pacifica 611 guitars also use the Custom 5 humbucker, but with an SP91 in the neck position. Can you please tell us about that pickup?
Yeah, that's another one of our really older pickups. Now, we didn't have that one when we first started. That was one of those products that required some tooling, and it wasn't something when I first started that we had as a product. It's based on the old P90s. It's an original single coil design, again from the mid 50s. It uses two Alnico 5 magnets, and it's a good reproduction of those old single coil P90 style pickups. The unique thing about those is that they retain a lot of brilliance of a single coil, but they get a really nice, fat, almost a humbucker-like sound. So they're kind of like a hybrid of between a single coil and a humbucker. They have a really unique sound. They're a great blues pickup, really popular with all the blues and rock players, and they've been around for a long time. People are really familiar with that sound. It's ingrained in a lot of the music that we listen to.
I'd like to thank Dave Dunwoody, Trev Wilkinson, and Kevin Beller for joining us. We're proud to feature components from Graphtec, Wilkinson, and Seymour Duncan on our Pacifica 600 guitars. Check them out at your local Yamaha dealer.